Today what we're going to do is get back into integers. Specifically, we're going to talk about ordering them, which is a huge part of your quiz on Thursday, Wednesday for the 8-8s. Overall, this one should not be too hard, but you have to pay attention, especially to the directions. Marking your text is going to be really critical, guys. First one, we're going to graph the number 7 and its opposite on the number line. Graph the number 5 and its opposite on the number line. So where would 7 be?
Over there.
Over where?
Over the number line.
Which way?
To the right.
To the right. How many spaces? 7. Where would its opposite be? -7. What about for 5? 5 and its opposite would be at -5. So if I look at this, where does 7 lie in relation to 5 on the number line? So if I look at that, where is 7 in comparison to 5? To which direction?
Right.
Which way is 7 from 5?
Right.
Right. 7 in relation to 5 is 2 to its right. Does everybody see that? So in relation to 5, I'd have to go 2 to the right to get to 7. So 2 to the right. What about its opposite? What is the opposite of 7 lie on the number line in relation to the opposite of 5? To the left by 2. So it's 2 to the left. So if I were to think of any two numbers, and I said that the first number lies to the right of the second number, what could I say about the opposite? It would be to the left. The opposite would always be to the left. Does that make sense, guys? So using that number sense, let's start talking about how we order these. The record low temperatures for a town in Maine are -20 degrees Fahrenheit in January and -19 degrees in February. We need to order those from least to greatest. Here's where marking the text really comes in on your test, guys. Because you're going to be doing stuff least to greatest, greatest to least. You're going to be doing opposites. You're going to be doing writing an integer. If you're doing the wrong thing, you're going to be wrong. Pretty basic. So as simple as this is, if you don't read the directions and do what's being asked, you're going to get the wrong answer. Another tip I like from Miss Caruana, as soon as she reads something like this, the first thing she does is writes L to G. Or, if you prefer, small to big. Make a note for yourself so you know exactly what it is you're doing. So I only have two integers, -20 and -19. Which one is smaller? Michael?
Are we doing the absolute value or the
Nope,
value?
just the value.
If it's the value, then the one that to 0 will be bigger.
Okay, so which one is smaller?
I mean, the one that's closer to 0 is small.
Which of those two is smaller? Because it asks for least to greatest. I need to list them in order.
It will be 20 to 19.
-20.
Negative 20.
So you're saying -20 is smaller than -19?
Yes, because let's say you have $10. You have $2 ready. Or 20 or 19. You want to have the most amount left possible. And that would be like -19. So you just like take any number minus that number. Which one has to do with subtraction and value?
Good. So explain how you arrived. For Michael, his explanation had to deal with money. He would rather owe $19 than $20 because that's further to the right. Make sense? So the bottom line on this, another one you could do is a number line. If I did a number line, I could show -20, -19, and say -20 is further left. Because that is really the mathematical definition of small versus big. The bigger number lies further right on a number line. The smaller number lies further left. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, good. Turn the page. We have a lot to do. We have 10 pages. I don't think you want to do these all as homework, do you?
No, I'm going to have because they're leaving me in the dust.
That's why you always come back and watch the video, Jasmine, and you'll even hear yourself.
Yeah, actually.
Okay, for each problem, order the rational numbers from least to greatest by first reading the problem, then drawing a number line diagram, and finally explaining your answer. So we really have a few things we need to make sure of. We have to order them, least to greatest, draw a number line, and explain. John's time for running the mile in gym class is 9.2 minutes. Jackie's time is 9.18 minutes. Who ran in less time? So that's really our big question. So in other words, which one is smaller, because I want less time, 9.2 or 9.18? What do you think, Michael?
Some might see 9.2, but 9.18 will be smaller by 2/100.
Why is that?
Because like with one decimal, the 9.8. If you draw 100 things and you fill out 20 of them, that's equivalent to the 2/10, but which is also equivalent to 2100. So let's say 2100, let's go to 1800. 18 is smaller than 20.
Good. So he also brings up a good point. On this, for the 9.2, could I have made that 9.20? Is that the same number? So is it easier for you, for those of you, there's a lot of you that may be easier to see that difference now, because they're both 2 digits, and you understand that 18 is smaller than 20. That makes a lot more sense, right?
Yeah.
So if that's going to help you, feel free to do that. Normally that 0 doesn't mean anything. We were supposed to do a number line diagram, so if I were to do those two, 9.18 would be somewhere in that area, 9.2 would be right there. So by our same criteria, 9.2 is further right, 9.18 is further left. Further left, that means it's smaller. So who ran in less time? Jackie ran in less time. Or you could have said faster, that would have also worked. The bottom line is Jackie won the race. Everybody good on this? Let's look at our next one. Miss Rodriguez teaches at Westbury Middle. She gives bonus points on tests for outstanding written answers and deducts points for answers when not written correctly. Chooses rational numbers to represent the points. She wrote the following on the student's papers. For student A, it was -2. Student B was -2.5. Did student A or student B perform worse on the test? So that's really our big question. Who performed worse? Going back to our original directions, which are still the same. We need to order them least to greatest. So which one is smaller?
2.
So -2, then -2.5. Everybody good on that one? What's that chance? Talk to me, buddy. I can't hear you. So we're good? Riker? Let's do our number line to make sure it makes sense. So if I do my number line, I'm going to just do -3, -2, -1, 0. So -2 is going to be here. -2.5 is going to be there. So which one is smaller? -2.5. Again, don't get confused. When I'm looking at negative numbers, guys, the bigger the negative number, the smaller it is. So 2.5 is bigger than 2, meaning I have to reverse it because it's negative. Does that make sense, Jasmine?
Yeah.
So which student performed worse?
Student B.
Student B. Everybody understand why student B was worse? Aiden?
Out of 100, student A got 98, but student B got 97.5.
Correct. So they both did well, but if the test was out of 3, neither of them did well.
What if there was like 1?
I could have been out of, but she's a really harsh teacher. She did that out of 1. Last one, a carp swimming approximately 8¼ feet beneath the water surface. Sunfish is 3½ feet beneath the water surface. Which fish is swimming farther beneath the water's surface? So first off, this one we actually need to do a little interpretation. What integer would I write for 8¼ feet beneath the water?
It's a plain number.
Uh-huh.
It'd be -8 and 1/4.
Good. And our second one, 3½ feet below the water. What integer would represent that? Lily? What integer would represent 3½ feet beneath the surface? -3½. So now that I've got my 2 integers written, now we can put them in order. Which one would be farther beneath the surface? Okay, so we actually have those in order, don't we? Again, we can do our number line. We have to because it was in our directions. So if we did -8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, -3½ is going to be right here. -8¼ is actually going to be all the way over here. So even there, we can see which fish is further below that carp. Make sense? Okay, last one on this page. We've got Henry, Clark, and Jaron are playing a card game. The object is to finish with the most points. The scores at the end of the game are Henry -7, Jaron 0, Clark -5. Who won the game? Who came in last place? Use a number line model and explain. So there's actually 4 things that we have to do here, guys. Just a heads up. You guys are going to be doing the Park test in probably April. This is the type of question Park loves to use. Because they have 4 different things that you have to answer. And if you're not paying attention and you only answer one of the 4, guess what your score looks like?
75.
Really bad. Okay? So you have to pay attention. You have to answer every single stage of the question. So let's start by order, like I said in the initial ones. Let's order these from least to greatest. So what number would be least?
0.
0, then what's next? 4. I don't even see 4. 0, -7, -5.
-5.
So -5. And then, everybody go with that?
No. Yeah. No.
Riker?
Should be -7, -5, and then 0.
Yeah, because it's least to greatest, guys. Remember, when I talk about negatives, the bigger the number is, the more negative it is, and the smaller it is. So for all of you I see madly erasing, sorry, I'm not going to just point stuff out to you. You've got to understand why you're making errors. Okay? So yes, that would be the actual order. So can we now start to answer? Who won?
First one 0.
Which was?
4.
So Janon won. Who lost the game? Who came in last place?
Henry.
Henry lost.
Whoa.
Have we done our number line yet? Nope. So we still need to do our number line. So -7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1. So we had 0 was Janin. I'll put a J. -5 was Clark. I'll put a C. And -7 was Henry. So we put an H. Have we done everything we needed? No, what else are we missing? Wait. Okay.
It's if you want the KMS place, wouldn't it be latest to least?
You could do it that way if you wanted to. But the directions, and it was actually exercise 1, we've been doing least to greatest. You'll get the same answer regardless which way you set it up. Aisha? The model's a number line, isn't it?
No, it's a number line and then line. But it's
Yeah, number line model. That is a number line model. Oh, explain. So we haven't explained yet? So whatever your explanation, Janin was furthest right. And Henry was furthest left. By definition, that means Janet had the most points and Henry had the least. Are you guys starting to see how these go together? Good. Now we're going to switch gears on you again. Of course. So now we're talking about comparing integers. So to compare integers, there's really two things that we look at. Comparing integers, you compare the sign, in other words, is it positive or negative, as well as the magnitude. Magnitude is a fancy math word for size. Can you guys think of something in science that you measure in magnitude? Earthquakes, good.
on the Richter scale. People.
On the Richter scale. There's a lot of things you actually do by magnitude, by the size. Stars are classified by their size, magnitude. Planets are classified by their size, magnitude. But we use those things as well as where they're located on the number line. As a side note, negative numbers or lower numbers go to the left. Higher or bigger numbers go to the right. Again, the further right I am on the number line, the bigger it is. So to do a comparison, greater numbers are farther right, lesser numbers are further left. So depending on which way I'm supposed to make my order will depend on which side of the graph I start on. If I'm listing greatest to smallest, I want to start on the right side of my number line. If I'm graphing least to greatest, I want to start on the left side of my number line. To compare integers, we need to remember a few things. How many of you remember in elementary school hearing about alligators? Okay. Too bad Miss Carolina's not here for that part because she hates alligators.
I love alligators.
She hates that analogy. It really is really important, guys, that you understand the less than or greater than. So, everybody do me a favor. Set your pencil down for a second.
No,
I want you to put both hands in front of you in an L.
Take the L.
Harold, follow along.
Make the turtle.
Okay? Put both in front of as an L. Now, you'll notice something. Your left hand is the letter L if you're looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah. Actually.
Now, turn them 90 degrees. You now have a less than sign and a greater than sign. Your L, the left hand, is less than. As you're looking at it, the left hand makes the less than sign. So if you're ever confused, now during the quiz, you can put your hands up in front of you. The one that is left or less than You now know what that sign looks like, in case you're wondering. So, write down, guys, as you write it. The sign with the small side to the left means less than. The sign with the big side to the left means greater than. The reason this matters, guys, is because this is how we say it mathematically. Although that's the symbol, when we're reading it, we read it left to right. So as I'm reading, I'm going to say whatever number is first is less than whatever number is second. Another way to think about this and help you remember, and this is where the alligator has always come in, the sign always opens to the bigger number.
That's how we can call it like the alligator. The alligator likes to eat the bigger number.
Yep. That's why the alligator works, but really mathematically, your symbol opens to the bigger number. It's the way that we would prefer that you remember it. Now, if I'm given two numbers, there are two different ways I could write them in a comparison. So you have to pay attention, especially if you're given something, as far as how to compare them. So if I compare -5 and -2, that first sign here means what? Less than. So if I see the less than, what number goes first? -5. -5 is less than -2. Why? Because it's further left on the number line. If it's greater than, now what do?
You put the 2 and then the 5.
Then I put the -2 is greater than -5. Does that order matter? Yes, absolutely it matters. Lumi, don't lean back in your chair. What about -4 and 3? The first sign says less than, so which of those two is smaller? -4 is less than 3, or 3 is greater than -4. And then our last set, -3 is less than 0, or 0 is greater than -3. I know for a lot of you it's kind of hard to conceptualize 0 being bigger than something, but that's its whole purpose of our negative numbers.
Smaller than 0.
Now, let's look at this next piece, because this is really quite important. When I'm ordering integers, you can use a number line to order a set of integers. Integers can be ordered from least to greatest or from greatest to least. Guys, one of the first things you should do as you're reading these, especially this quiz on Thursday, as soon as you read that, if it's least to greatest, write L to G. If it's greatest to least, write G to L. Or if you don't like that, you could also write bigger to small. So B to S, or S to B, if I'm doing small to big. Whatever terminology you will help you use. Let's go ahead and use these numbers. We'll graph them first, and then we'll be able to order them. So -9 is going to be down here on the negative side, 9 spaces. 6 will be 6 spaces to the right of 0. -3 will be 3 spaces to the left of 0, because it's negative. 0 will be directly on the number line. Once I have put them onto the number line, it's going to be really easy to do least to greatest. So using least to greatest, what would be the smallest of those numbers? Aisha? Not subtract, -9. Okay, what would be my next number, Riker? -3. Okay, someone behind me. Ryland. 0. And last, Lily? 6. Everybody agree with that set?
Yeah.
Good, because that one is correct. Now, could we also use comparing the signs and values? Yeah, I could do that. If I look just at my list, I automatically know what? what's going to be smaller, negatives or positives? Negatives. So I can look at my negatives, remembering that the bigger the negative, the smaller it is. I've only got 2 to look at, right? Which one would be smaller, -9 or -3? -9. So again, just looking at the signs, next would be -3 because it's the only other negative. What's going to go next then, the 0 or the 6? 0, because that's my borderline between positive and negative, and then 6. So I could have done it either way. The number line I kind of like, especially as you get used to it, because it lays it out very visually for you. It's really hard to make a mistake once you've got it written on the number line. I will also give you a hint. If you use the number line and you lay them all out correctly and then mess something up in your answer, I would still give you half credit. So using the number line is a very good backup for you, but it will also help you out immensely not to make any errors. Oopsie. Okay, go to the next page. Should we say lesson 8 on top? That's the same one you guys are at? Should I skip a page? That's what I was worried about. It keeps skipping 7. There it is. Ah, good. This is a good one, guys. So which of these lists is ordered from least to greatest? Again, marking our text is going to help. So the first thing I know, nice thing is, in a multiple choice, if it says least to greatest, is it going to be a positive to start? No. So I automatically know that's wrong. So now I only have 2 to look at. Which one's right? -2, -5, or -5, -2? Lily? Good. -5, -2. So C. Which list shows the integers in increasing? Increasing means what? Go from little to big. It's increasing. So again, big to little to big, I automatically know number A is wrong. So which one is correct, B or C? B. B, because -5 is smaller than -2. And then, which list shows the integers in decreasing order? Decreasing means bigger to smaller, great to least. So once again, starting in negative, I know that one's not right. So which one is it? B. Guys, pay attention to everything. Okay, at this point, let's jump over to page 5 in your packet.
Number B? Yeah, my God.
It was Einstein.
Not very smart. Did you highlight decrease order?
Yes. Guys. Okay, everybody should be on page 5. On this one, Sam has $10 in the bank. He owes his friend Hank $2.25. Owes his sister $1.75. Consider the 3 rational numbers related to the story of Sam's money. Write and order them from least to greatest. So we actually have 2 tasks. We have to write them and order them. So writing them should be the easy part. If I have $10 in the bank, what integer would represent that? Aiden, question or? 10. So that's just $10. What integer would show that he owes his friend $2.25? That's not you. It says Sam. So he owes his friend $2.25. What integer would represent that? Sorry? Good. That would be a negative $2.25. Kind of like Aiden, negative. And our last one. What would be the integer for owing his sister $1.75? Negative $1.75. So guys, once we have our integers listed, we've written them, now we can order them. No, if you go to the next problem, you've got the problem wrong. Let's order them from least to greatest. What is the smallest of those 3 numbers? Negative what?
175. Yeah, I know that.
How many think negative 175 is the smallest number? Raise your hand. How many think negative 225 is the smallest number? Raise your hand.
$10 is the smallest because that's the
Hey Einstein, why are you not voting? You don't know which one it is?
$1.75.
So negative 175 is smaller than negative 225, right?
No. Wait, no. Wrong.
That's what you just said.
That's what I thought.
So is it or is it not? So which one is smaller? Thank you. So to put them in order, guys, quiet down. Again, the further left I go, the bigger the number gets. So technically it is, but the more negative it is, the smaller it is. Make sense?
The more left you go, the more out you go.
Hey, Einstein, I need it quiet for the recording. Why don't you move to the center table for today? Yes. I'm keeping you as Einstein so it's not showing up on the video exactly who it is.
Can I say his name?
No. We're trying to protect the guilty. Next one. For each problem, list the rational numbers that relate to each situation, then order them from least to greatest, and explain how you made your determination. So, we've got several things we need to do. We need to list the rational numbers, we need to order them from least to greatest, and we need to explain how we got the answers. Our first one, most recent visit to the optometrist, Kadisha and her sister Beth had their vision tested. Kadisha's vision in her left eye was minus 150. Her vision in her right eye was the opposite number. Beth's vision was negative 1 in her left eye and plus 25 in her right eye. So, first, list the rational numbers. So our first one, let's list it, negative 1.50. What would its opposite be? 1.50. Negative 1. 4 positive 0.25. Now we need to order them from least to greatest. So again, I'll write that there, least to greatest, to remind us what we're doing. Which of those numbers is the smallest?
1.5.
1.5 is the smallest?
Negative 1.5.
Negative 1.5. And technically these aren't dollars, but if it helps you to think about it in money, that's not bad. Because I'd rather owe $1 than $1.50. So then the next negative number, negative 1.0. Now we're to the positives. Our next positive number would be 0.25. And our last positive number, last on our list. Does everybody agree with that order? Anybody have any issues with it? Good. That is the correct order. So we've got them ordered, we've got them listed. How do we make our determination? I went from the furthest left to furthest right, which really is the definition of ordering. Going from the furthest left on the number line to the furthest right, or furthest right to furthest left, depending if I'm going greatest to least or least to greatest. Okay, our next one. There are 3 pieces of mail in Mr. Thomas's box. A bill from the phone company for $38.12, a bill from the electric company for $67.55, and a tax refund for $25.89. A bill is money you owe. A refund is money that you receive. So that should help you on the whole positive negative piece. So the first thing we need to do is write in our integers. What integer would I use for a bill of $38.12?
Negative.
Good job, Jasmine. Negative $38.12. What integer would I use for an electric bill of $67.55? Negative
$67.55.
Negative 67.55. What integer would I use for a tax refund of 25.89? 25.89. So it's positive, so I don't write a sign. It's just 25.89. Okay, what else are we supposed to do? Put it in order from least to greatest, because we're into the same directions we had. So, which of those numbers is the smallest?
Negative $68.55. Negative.
Which one?
Negative $68.55.
67.55? So negative 67.55. That's why you were messing me up. I was like 38. It's 38, not 68. Our next negative, because we only have one other negative left, negative 38.12. And then our positive will always be bigger than any negative, 25.89. We also have to say our reasoning. We can actually use the exact same reasoning. I listed them from furthest left to right. Again, that is our whole definition of how big an integer is as we're doing this. Any questions on that page? Okay. This is where we go back. It was here, right? Yes, go back to page 4. Okay, coming back to page 4. I'll be honest, this is messed up. This is supposed to be numbers here, not boxes. So you just put numbers in there. That's numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. For the first part, we're going to compare each pair of integers with less than, greater than, or equal to.
Is or an option?
No, that's why I only circle 3 things. No, that's circling the equal sign. So negative 5, negative 6, and negative 5. I want everybody to get involved on this one. So it's either less than, equal to, or greater than. So if it's less than, hold up your left hand, that's the left hand symbol. If it's greater than, hold up your right hand, that's the greater than symbol. If it's equal, put your both arms like that. Make sense? So, negative 6, negative 5, is that less than or greater than?
Less than.
So left hand if you think it's less than, right hand if you think it's greater than. Greater than? Looks like most of you have it. That is a less than. Negative 6 is further left than negative 5, meaning it's smaller. Okay, is this number 1,461?
Yeah, I think so. No, it's 46.
What is it, Aisha? Awesome, that's absolute value of 46. So the absolute value of 46 and 46, less than, greater than, or equal? Less than left hand, greater than right hand, equal. Looks like most of you got that. What's the absolute value of 46? 46. So 46 and 46, that's the same number. They're equal.
But that's 1,046.
No, it's not. That's the absolute value of 46.
Oh, I saw the ones.
Okay, the next one over. Absolute value of negative 65 and the absolute value of 65. Less than, greater than, or equal. Yes.
I only saw 1,061. So why is it that the two instruments that they refer to ones?
Because you got to be careful when you're looking at it. There's no comma would be your first sign that it's not thousands.
Okay.
If there was a comma, then that would have been thousands.
Okay.
But since there's not a comma in a 4-digit number, that's normally an indicator you're looking at absolute value. Okay? So the next one, absolute value negative 65 and absolute value 65. Less than, greater than, or equal? Question, are you less than? Absolute value of negative 65 and the absolute value of 65. Less than, greater than, or equal. Let's go, guys. I need signs. Most of you are looking good again. Those are equal. Absolute value of negative 65 is 65. Absolute value of 65 is 65. Remember, absolute value is always the positive value because it's how far it is from 0. And we measure distance positively. Okay, negative 8 and 0. What's our sign for that one, Aiden? Exactly. Stop talking and pay attention. That is less than. What about 47 and negative 28? Guys, hands up. Which one is it? Looks like most of you got that one. That was positive, so that's 48. That's bigger than. Negative 7 and 7. Right, you're second guessing yourself, huh? Yes, you should have your left hand up. That is less than. Okay, does every integer have an opposite?
No. Yes.
Michael?
I'm not sure what the 0 one. It's 0. Is it 0?
Yes.
Negative 0. Yes.
No, there's no such thing as negative 0.
Yes. What is 0's opposite? It is itself. But it does have an opposite. So yes, they all have an opposite. Does a decimal number, such as 5 and 4/10, have an opposite?
Every number.
Negative 5 and 4/10. Yes, they all have opposites. When is the absolute value of a number the number itself?
0.
0 or?
Oh.
Spencer?
Positive number?
Yes. So 0 or a positive number.
Isn't 0 technically a positive number?
No. 0 is a very special number. It is neither positive nor negative.
It's 0.
Yes.
What happens if negative number?
If it's a negative number, its absolute value will be its opposite. But it says when its value is the number itself. Negative 67 is not 67. I get another one? Man, you can build my collection really big, Spencer. Okay, and you'll notice there's a little blank in between there, so it's 2 spots. So the blank of a number is its distance from 0 on a number line.
Negative and positive.
No,
Left and right.
no,
Direction of.
Number 1 said explain. Yeah.
No, it didn't. Yes, to me, it's 0. It's a 0 win.
yes.
No, we don't have to explain.
Well, we're actually running out of time. What would be the explanation for that, guys?
Number is opposite.
Do what?
Number is opposite. Absolute value.
Absolute value. So the absolute value of a number is its distance from 0. So our explanation, every number technically is reflected across 0. That says 0. 2 integers are blank if their sum is 0. What term is it if I would add them together to get 0?
Equal?
Nope.
Purple.
2 plus 2 is not 0.
Negative 2 plus 2 is 0.
Yeah, and you were still doing it. Yeah, you were. I heard it.
2 plus
Really?
negative 2?
No.
Equal.
2 integers are blank if their sum is 0. In other words, I add them together, I get 0. What does that tell me about them? No, absolute value means they're the same distance from 0.
0.
Aisha?
Even?
One of them is.
Negative?
What number would I add to negative 2 to get to 0?
I didn't know it.
What number would I add to 3 to get to 0? 3 plus 3 is 0?
No, wait.
What number would I add to 3 to get to 0?
A positive number.
Guys, did you hear the numbers we just used?
I know it.
Spencer?
I get ready to get my text back.
At the end of class.
Yes, opposites.
Opposites.
You get it wrong.
So, two numbers are opposites if their sum is 0. So that's how you know that they're zeros, guys. They add up to 0.
I knew that. I was just waiting. I wanted them to get second class.
Okay, go to page 7. I think we did that one already, though.
I was being nice to you.
Nope, that's 7, right? Anything we don't do is homework. So it says finish the packet.
He's making us do 6 for homework. Protest.
Oh, here's 6. Go to 6, guys. We're supposed to do this one before we went back. That's my bad.
Can we have some leeway? Like, if you're too slow?
Guys, slide down.
For 60.
You want me to take that too? I'll take the whole bag. Monica, Jack, and Destiny measured their arm lengths for an experiment. They compared their lengths to a standard length of 22 inches. The listing below shows in inches. Spencer, you need to be quiet. That's the reason you're at the center table. You haven't been able to be quiet most of the year. So what we're doing, guys, is we're comparing the 22 inches. So in this case, 22 inches is our 0 point. Each kid is comparing their arms to that 22 inches. So for Monica, it was negative 1/8. Jack was 1 3/4. Dustin was negative 1/2. We're under the same directions as we were for the last couple, which is order these from least to greatest. So which of these is smallest? Riker? Negative 1. So you're saying negative 1/2 is smaller than negative 1/8, right? Okay. Everybody good with that? One eighth is smaller than 1/2? So let's look at our number line real quick, guys. Here's another one of those where a number line can help you. So if I do this in 1/2 increments, so negative 1/2, negative 1, 1/2, 1, 1 1/2. 1 3/4 is actually going to be a little bit out this way. There's 1 3/4. Where would negative 1/8 be?
In the middle of 1/2 and 2.
So here?
No.
You
said between 1/2 and 0. That's 1/2, and that's 0.
3/8 and 0.
Between what?
2/8 and 0.
2/8. So he's saying it's between 1/4 and 0, which would be right about there. And negative 1/2 would be there. So yes, we did those in the correct order. Good job.
We're big brain. Big brain.
Our next one, Jason, entering college. He opened a checking account. Parents gave him $200 to deposit into the account. He wrote a check for $85 to pay for his calculus book, and a check to $25.34 to pay for miscellaneous school supplies. Write the 3 rational numbers related to the balance in Jason's checking account in order from greatest to least. Here's where they will get you almost every time. We do 4 different problems about least to greatest that throw greatest to least on you. Aiden, yeah, you lost it. You're back.
What? I wasn't talking.
I have video proof of it too. You were talking loud enough, I'm sure it showed up. So you can listen tonight and you'll see what I'm talking about. So go ahead, move back. First thing we need to do, write the 3 rational numbers. $200 deposit, what number would that be?
200.
200. A check of $85 to pay for something would be? Negative 85. And a check for $25.34 to pay for something would be negative. So, again, on the side, guys, always a good idea, write what you're doing. I'm going greatest to least. So what of those numbers is the biggest? The biggest. 200. Next one would be negative 25.34. And finally, negative 85. Everybody good with our list?
No, I'm not ready. I'm still ready.
Yes, that is the correct order. Okay, we got 10 minutes left, so we're going to go ahead and we'll give you guys a break. Go ahead and X out 5 and 6. And we already went back to page 4. So go to, yes, our next page. The last page?
That's the homework?
Oh, I didn't erase it. Yes, this is part of your homework. It's the last page. So go to the back side, guys. We want to make sure you understand these instructions. Also, of everything on the quiz, this is probably the closest to what the quiz is about, guys. So this is actually a really important page for you. On our first one, we're writing an integer for each situation. So what integer would be 3 units to the left of 0? Negative 3. Good job. Now, for the worksheet, what that means is I go to negative 3, which is right here. Above that, I put the letter E. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so that one's pretty simple. Those are relatively easy, guys. Our second one, I'll be honest with you, it's almost easier if you actually read this. So, actually, if you read this, instead of saying a minus or a negative, say that as opposite. So what is the opposite of 17?
Negative 17.
What's the opposite of 17?
Negative 17.
Negative 17. So at negative 17, I'm going to put an A. So there's negative 17, I put an A. Make sense? The next one would be, what is the opposite of negative 14?
14.
14. So the opposite of negative 14 is 14. So at 14, I'm going to put the letter I. The letter I. Does that make sense? Yeah, this one should be really easy. What is greater? The key here is make sure you focus on the word. What is greater, 2 or negative 13? 2. So 2 gets the letter N. Make sense? The one that's probably the most confusing is this last set. So the table gives a starting point, direction, and length for arrows. Once you get to the end of the arrow, you put the letter. So I'm going to start at 0, so starting right here. I'm going to go in a negative direction for 4 spaces. So I go left, 1, 2, 3, 4, draw my arrow. That is where the letter M goes. Make sense? So that just gives you your starting point, what direction you're moving, for how many before you put your letter. Yes? Sure. So on the first one, I start at 0. So I'm going to start here at 0. I'm going to go in the negative direction, that's left, for 4 spaces. So I go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I draw my arrow. Above that arrow goes the letter that's listed with it, M. Make sense? Okay, let's talk about a couple other these that are really confusing if you don't understand what they're saying. And that's where we're going to use letters and substitute in. So, for example, letter U says the opposite of N if N is 16. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put the number that it says in for N. So what is the opposite of 16? Negative 16. So at negative 16, I get the letter U. Now, it says the opposite of n if n is a negative 16. So what's the opposite of negative 16? 16. So at 16, I'm going to get the letter G. When we do get down to the bottom, it's just the absolute value. So what's the absolute value of 9?
9.
9. What's the opposite of 9?
9.
Because the opposite is on the outside of the absolute value sign. Make sense?
So wait, is there that?
So it's negative 9
So you
because...
You pretty much take away the brackets.
No, you're not taking away the bracket.
No, because if you look at it...
You're reading that as the opposite of the absolute value of 9. You're not taking away the brackets. Because in this case, what's the absolute value of negative 15? 15. What's the opposite of 15? Negative 15. I can't just take away the brackets.
No, I meant the E. But
No.
well, yeah.
No. That's very poor math. Do not do that. So that one would be S. So we've already given you quite a few of your answers on this one. Basically, all you need to do is fill in the rest of them.
Is there going to be empty spaces?
There will be empty spaces, yes.
As in, like, space bars?
No, as in, there'll be empty spaces between the words. There's multiple words that make up your answer. So the question is, up here on the top, why do flies always bring their stopwatches to parties? This is the answer. So in other words, this is the punchline to another great dad joke.
We have 5 minutes.
You don't have 5 minutes because now we can... No, that's an S. It just looks funny because I did it with my hand. That's an S.
You thought.
Guys, I want you to go back to this page. It says problem set. I believe this is page 8.
No.
To 7.
You lied. We have to do 3 pages of homework, dude. No, I'm sorry. You are annoying. It's 7. It's 7. That's honest.
You want to do this one, Steve?
Yes. I mean, I can. Yes.
Okay, guys, let's go. For each relationship, write an inequality that relates to rational numbers. In other words, I need to use again my less than or greater than symbols or equal to. So I have 7 feet below sea level is farther below sea level than 4.5 feet below sea level. So we can start off just by writing the rational number. 7 feet below sea level would be what? Negative 7. That's going to look really bad. That's a negative 7. And then negative 4.5 feet below sea level would be negative 4.5. I said the negative when I said it.
You did.
So how do I compare those? Negative 7 is what than negative 4.5? Less than. Pretty easy, right? 16 degrees Celsius. What integer would represent that?
16.
16 is warmer than 0 degrees Celsius.
No better.
16 is what than 0? Greater than. Guys seen how to do this?
I mean, yeah.
Should take you all of how long to get this whole page done?
5 minutes.
3 1/2 yards of fabric. How do I write that as an integer?
3 1/2.
3 1/2 is less than, they even gave you the symbol, 5 1/2 yards of fabric. They gave us a symbol less than. A loss of $500, what integer would represent that?
Well, that sucks.
Negative 500, that would really be bad. Happens.
Who gets
Is worse than a gain of 200. A gain of 200 would be represented by what?
21?
200. What symbol goes in between them? Less than. A test score of 64 is worse than a test score of 65. So 64, 65, what goes between them? Less than. And a test score of 65 is worse than a test score of 67.5. So what would go in between those? Another lesson. Now here's one other thing you could do, guys. We can actually do an inequality chain. We could have also just done it like that. Either one of those would have been okay. Do what? Actually, for time's sake, guys, we'll go ahead and cross off the rest of that page. Okay?
Yippee!
So overall, good job today.
Including 6. So that means your homework is pages 8, 9, and 10.
So page 8. Oops. If I can get it to stop in between. Guys, here's your homework. You can tell, multiple choice. Should be relatively easy. 9 problems, not hard. The last part might take you a little longer, but it shouldn't be bad.
Pages 8, 9, and 10.
No.